Scrum and SAFe, the Scaled Agile Framework. There are different organization-wide scaling models. There's Scrum at Scale from Scrum.inc. There's Nexus from Scrum.org. There's LESS, Large Scale Scrum. There's SAFe, the Scaled Agile Framework. They all help organizations understand some of the considerations they should be accounting for when they are considering full-blown, organization-wide, top-to-bottom agile transformations. I hear often this question about Scrum versus SAFe, which I find interesting because in all of the different scaling models I've just mentioned, they all at their core have some representation of Scrum. Scaled Agile Framework in particular, if you get a chance, take a look at the graphic that's presented on the Scaled Agile Framework website. Down in the bottom left, in this very large diagram, you'll see this small area that highlights Scrum. That is the starting point. Now, I'm a certified Scrum trainer, and I'm also a former SPC, a safe practice consultant. So I understand some of the theory about this, and I have seen several organizations that have deployed or attempted to deploy SAFe. SAFe has many sound principles behind it. I think there are two concerns that often come up when organizations are trying to deploy something like the Scaled Agile Framework. One of the concerns has to do with leadership. Now, Scaled Agile clearly recommends that you start at the top. If leaders are not on board, the transformation will probably not succeed. And I agree with that. Part of the problem is that leaders may be trained, but they often aren't engaged on a regular basis. And what therefore could happen is this false belief that by simply following this large framework, everything will fall into place. And we know that organizational transformation is much too complicated for such a simple assessment. Another concern regarding an organization-wide deployment of SAFe has to do with this idea of Scrum versus SAFe. I might ask somebody, so is your organization using Scrum? And they'll say, oh, well, we're using SAFe. Well, you are using Scrum if you're using SAFe. Why is the question important to me? Because oftentimes the organization misses this critical aspect of their framework that Scrum is at the core. If you can't get Scrum right at the core, as you expand, as you look to add these different structural elements to account for scaling, you will often end up scaling your Scrum team inefficiencies. So you need to start small. I give credit to Craig Larman and Bas Voda and Hubert Smits for sharing these ideas that if you can't get the core team right, you're not ready to scale. Hubert Smits has an expression where he says, nail it before you scale it. Get it right. Large scale Scrum has this belief that start small, get that right first. Then you're in a position to consider scaling upward. So my recommendation, if you are considering a larger scale framework, have a serious evaluation of the effectiveness of your core Scrum teams first and ensure that you indeed are ready and that the organization is indeed ready and that your leaders are indeed ready to embrace such an organization-wide transformation.